What happens when you put a sharp-tongued trial lawyer who's a millennial black woman in Texas and a Congress that thrives on performative nonsense all in one room? You get Jasmine Crockett. Now, you've probably seen her go viral grilling Republicans in committee hearings, checking colleagues with the energy of someone who is one more dumb question away from flipping the table. Which, to be fair, is fair. And to be honest, that's not just for show. That is years of training. Most politicians talk like they're auditioning for a commercial. Jasmine talks like she's still in a courtroom, cross-examining stupidity in real time, and the right hates her for it. They call her disrespectful and unprofessional. But let's be honest, what they really mean is she's not letting us get away with lying on CNN anymore. See, Jasmine didn't come out of nowhere. Before she was in Congress, she was a public defender and civil rights attorney in Dallas. That means while most politicians were cashing checks from lobbyists, she was literally defending people who couldn't afford a lawyer. And if you've ever seen her in a hearing, that cross-examination muscle memory is showing every single time. Now, why does she get under people's skin? It's not just the words, it's the delivery. She doesn't do the soft agree to disagree routine. She calls things what they are. If a colleague is lying, she says it. If someone's twisting the Constitution into a balloon animal, she points at it and laughs. And when Republicans try the classic, "How dare you raise your voice, young lady? Move." Jasmine flips it and leaves them looking like they just lost an argument at Thanksgiving dinner. Now, think about it. Congress is basically a high school cafeteria with suits. You've got the jocks who never read the homework, the overachievers writing essays on napkins, and then Jasmine, the student who actually read the assignment and circled all your spelling errors in a red pen. Nobody likes that person when they're wrong, and she's not doing this for clout. She could have stayed in law, made big money, avoided all the nonsense of politics. Instead, she stepped into politics because she saw how policies were crushing her community in Texas. And when she speaks now, you can feel it. Yeah, we're going to talk about Jasmine Crockett, how she went from defending clients in courtrooms to defending democracy in Congress, why her voice is shaking up the room, and why it makes some people so uncomfortable. And maybe most importantly, what it says about American politics when simply telling the truth gets you labeled as radical. Because if you really want to understand Jasmine Crockett, you have to look past the headlines. She's something scary to the status quo, a lawyer with a backbone and zero interest in playing nice with people who would rather burn the house down than share it. So let's get into it. If Jasmine Crockett didn't grow up thinking that Congress was her dream, she was definitely in preparation for it. In fact, she was more likely to be found doing debate club than any other activities. She was born in St. Louis, Missouri, and raised in a working class family. And if you listen to how she talks about her life, it's clear she didn't grow up around luxury. She grew up around reality, the reality that most Americans face. Now, when most politicians say, "I understand working people," what they really mean is, "I saw one once while being driven to the airport." Jasmine, she was that person. Her family wasn't rolling in money, and she knew what it meant to have to fight for every opportunity. And that's her foundation. She went to college at Rhodes in Memphis, then law school at the University of Houston. And here's where it gets interesting. She didn't chase the corporate ladder. She didn't go after the big cushy paycheck. Instead, she became a public defender. Pause. Think about how wild that choice is. Most of us after law school will be like, student loans are breathing down my neck. Let me make as much money as possible. Jasmine looked at the debt, looked at the odds, and said, "Nah, I'm going to fight for people who can't afford a lawyer." That tells you everything you need to know about her wiring. Because being a public defender, that's basically combat. You're underpaid, overloaded, and walking into courtrooms where the deck is stacked against your clients before you even sit down. And you know who's often sitting on the other side? Ambitious prosecutors padding their stats trying to use poor black defendants as stepping stones to judgeships and political careers. Jasmine saw that up close, and she was good at it. Colleagues talk about how relentless she was in court, how she stayed late, double-checked the details, and refused to roll over even when the odds were ugly. That's where her style comes from, the quick comebacks, the "I will not let you lie in peace" energy. That's courtroom training on display. After years of defending clients, she pivoted into civil rights law. Why? Because she was watching police brutality cases stack up like bad reruns. She represented families, fought against abuse, and basically made a career out of being the lawyer you call when the system chews you up. So, how did she end up in politics? Well, in 2020, she decided to run for the Texas House of Representatives. And if you know anything about Texas politics, you know that's like walking into a gunfight with a butter knife. And that's where this leap happens. In 2022, Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson, a legend, one of the longest serving black women in Congress, announced she was retiring. That left a rare open seat in Texas's 30th district, which includes a big chunk of Dallas. Jasmine jumped in, and with Johnson's blessing, she won. That's how she went from St. Louis roots to Houston Law School to Dallas courtrooms to Capitol Hill. But here's the part that matters. Her motivation never really changed. She wasn't chasing prestige from the beginning. She wasn't chasing some photo op with lobbyists. They don't dress that well anyway for photos. I'm just being honest. From the jump, Jasmine's mission has been the same. Fight for the people who get overlooked. The folks who don't have lobbyists. The ones who don't get to slide campaign checks across the table. So when you see her in a congressional hearing grilling somebody until her staff starts Googling, can you fake a medical emergency to leave a room? Understand, that's not new. That's Jasmine Crockett doing what she's always done. Just now, the stage is much bigger. Jasmine Crockett didn't come to Congress to play patty cake. She came swinging like she was from the east side of Detroit. This is where I'm from, represent. Okay, but look, the way she questions witnesses, razor sharp and loaded up with facts that other politicians like to pretend don't exist.
So just for the general public, because I don't want anybody to believe that that's a good idea, I just got on Google, which if you have a cell phone, we can all do that. Breitbart News Network is an American far-right syndicated news, opinion, and commentary website founded mid-2007 by American conservative commentator Andrew Breitbart. Breitbart News content has been described as misogynistic, xenophobic, and racist by academics and journalists. So I don't know that that's where I want anybody to take their cues from, especially when they're trying to run this country.
She'll lay out the law, call out the hypocrisy, and then stick the landing with one line that makes the clip go viral. Remember when Republicans tried to paint her as unprofessional for challenging them? She flipped it, calmly pointing out that what really makes them uncomfortable isn't her tone, it's that she's right. Jasmine Crockett is a communicator who understands how the internet works. Her exchanges are clipped, shared, and memed within hours.
It is so interesting that I just learned today at 44 years old that the Republicans are going to be the ones to save women. The same Republicans that have been, say, for women's reproductive acts, or the same Republicans that have stood for the Equal Rights Act, which would hopefully get women to equal pay, or the same Republicans that just this Congress voted for the SAVE Act, which we know would disenfranchise women from even being able to vote. But let me tell you, they are our saviors, and so I am so happy to be here today, because otherwise I would not have an idea that I had a savior in the Republicans. Because what we know is that they have terminated staff responsible for enforcing federal protections against sex-based discrimination. Sounds like that's pro-women. Or they've cut funding for domestic violence survivor services. Sounds pro-woman to me. Or they've prohibited funding for research affecting women's health. That definitely sounds pro-women to me. Essentially, they closed the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights. Again, sounds like they are fighting for us. And instead of providing oversight over these actions, congressional Republicans have been working to execute one of the most aggressive anti-women legislative agendas in history. And yet, they're here today trying to convince the American people that discriminating against trans people is somehow the only way to protect women.
She's winning both the moment in DC and the narrative outside of it. That's a different kind of power. Most politicians are still trying to figure out how to go campaign without embarrassing themselves. Jasmine does it by simply doing her job, telling the truth for the people she represents.
It's the Democratic leadership on oversight that has truly been able to move this forward. We are about doing real transparency. We don't care who's in the files. We are going after you. So if I had to sum up what happened today, we heard the stories of victims. Oh, yes, we had the roundtable, but they actually want to see some action.
It's the mix that sets her apart, the legal mind of a defense attorney, the persistence of an activist, and the timing of a stand-up comic who knows exactly when to pause for effect. I'm learning, okay? I'm learning. And while her style makes Democrats cheer, it also makes Republicans furious. Because in every clip, she's exposing how insecure and uninformed they truly are. Just how much of their job is to go along instead of act towards any actual change in America. Republicans don't hate Jasmine Crockett because she's loud. They hate her because she's effective. When they push conspiracy theories, she dismantles them with the law. When they throw personal insults, she redirects back to corruption and policy. She doesn't get flustered, and she doesn't play the respectable role they expect from a black woman in Congress.
We talk about free speech, and right now as we're having these discussions, you know who's trying to shut down members from voting in the way that they want to vote? It's the president, who literally said he would look at anyone who decided that they were going to vote to release the Epstein files as hostile. That sounds like a threat as it relates to all First Amendment protections, in addition to the fact that it's literally contravening our constitutional duty that we swore an oath to, because we don't swear to an orange king. Instead, we have sworn an oath to the Constitution, and we were elected to represent the people that elected us. Thank you so much.
Take her clashes with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Jim Jordan. They come in swinging with disrespectful one-liners, and Crockett hits back with actual constitutional arguments, which is what they all should be doing. The clip doesn't just trend because it's dramatic. It trends because you can see the imbalance. One side came to perform and belittle. The other side came to speak truth to power and actually make positive changes for her constituents.
This is not what we should be doing. I don't even know why we fighting with Greenland. Why we fighting with Greenland? We fighting with Canada. We fighting with Mexico. Yet we in love with Putin. What is happening? Like, this is not America. This is a terrible nightmare. Somebody slap me and wake me the up, because I'm ready to get on with it. I think that people are over politicians trying to politic. I think that they want people to truly represent them, and the frustration and the annoyance and even some of like the comical stuff. Like, look at Pete, right? Like, because we love DUI hires, right? But, you know, like, really is. But let me tell you something. We really don't know how much damage they're causing. Like, when I tell you that the level of incompetence is almost like incomprehensible, it is so bad.
That's the real problem for Republicans. Crockett breaks the script. Normally, Democrats let the insults slide. They pivot. They stay civil. Okay, they're soft, okay? Cottonelle, soft, okay? But Jasmine is absolutely not. She brings intensity but keeps her focus intact. I'm sorry, Democrats, y'all are soft. I'm telling the truth. And beyond a soundbite, she's building credibility with people who feel ignored. Every time she calls out corruption, she's saying what a lot of Americans wish their representatives would say. That's dangerous for the GOP, because if more politicians adopted that approach, fearless, factual, unapologetic, like, you know, actually being a fucking leader, it will be a lot harder to run politics on outrage and empty slogans. I'm just saying, you're in a leadership position. I don't know, maybe just be a leader. So here's the bottom line. Jasmine Crockett is a reminder of what democracy is supposed to sound like when it's alive and breathing. Because Congress these days, it's like watching two people argue over who gets the aux cord while the car is already on fire. If the car is on fire, get the fuck out. Do y'all have a death wish or something? What the hell is going on here? Most folks up there speaking press release language. You can predict their sentences before they even open their mouths. Then you got Crockett. She's saying what a lot of people are thinking, but don't have a microphone for. Even though microphones are pretty cheap these days, so what the fuck is the excuse? When she pressed Republicans about using Biden crime family as a smokescreen for their own lack of evidence, that was a public service. Thank you, Jasmine. We are all quite sick of their deflections at this point. When she stood up to defend reproductive rights, she didn't tiptoe around it. And that's why she makes so many people uncomfortable. She forces accountability in a room built to dodge it. She cuts through the noise without permission and in a system that rewards polished silence. That is dangerous. And that danger is exactly what we as Americans need. Democracy does not survive on being polite. It survives on friction, on voices that refuse to be quiet when the stakes are this high. That's why they hate Jasmine Crockett. Not because she's rude, not because she's loud, but because she's effective. And she may be all those things. I don't think so, but whatever, right? But that's not why they hate her. And in a system that thrives on delay, confusion, and polite dishonesty, effectiveness is the scariest thing of all. In fact, Halloween is coming up. If you want to scare your Republican coworkers, just be effective. They will leave you alone. They can't handle that type of energy. This has been the Adonis Black Show, man. Thanks for watching.